Okay, the purpose of this quick overview is just to provide some additional details to what we provided as a look ahead to U11 during our wrap-up parents meeting at CORE. So our expectations and demands at U11 are going to take a leap forward. And to do that, this is our emphasis. The coaching staff's emphasis is going to be on technical proficiency, focused training intensity, desire, and work ethic, the application of that technical proficiency in the individual and team tactics, and then respect in general. Now you'll see the note at the very bottom here references that on the technical proficiency side, we're going to place a heavy emphasis on individual and group defending, which is going to prove challenging for some players because that requires a hefty amount of focus and training intensity and work ethic and listening skills. So let's just sort of shake this out, how it would look in practices. So in practices, if we say that our emphasis is what's listed on the right here, and we've got a group of 24 plus boys in our target squad, and I've emphasized here that the dominant factor for practices is really going to be about focus, training intensity, desire, and work ethic. And the boys are going to really start to understand what impact that has, not only in terms of how quickly you can improve, but also as we constantly say to them, that we're keeping an eye on that, and we are modifying and looking to see who's focused and pointing out that those people who aren't focused are really sort of detrimental to those who are trying to stay focused and improve their game. So the more we can focus on that, then the better. So in this scenario here, we have the 24 plus boys, and we look during the training at the beginning in the warm-up, and we can see even before the warm-up who's got a decent focus for that day and are ready to sort of prepare and train. So maybe it's in our first drill, our warm-up, our skill work, that we see who has good focus and who's ready to train. Well, based on that, as we move and advance throughout the practice, we're going to group those players into a particular group. So that would be if, let's say, we're doing the same drill, we do the same drill on separate sides of the field. Well, that practice group one with the greatest focus and training intensity for that training session, they're going to work together so that we can try and maximize their development based on the fact that they are highly focused that day. Then there's the other group, so all those other people, boys who for one reason or another their focus isn't there. So we will group them together, and they will execute the same drill, but in a different group. And so really the focus here is just to allow them to identify that, yeah, you know what, your focus and training intensity does impact things. And that's how we see practices moving forward for the coming year. When it comes to competition days are going to be sort of approached in a similar fashion. Of course, we're going to have two target teams at U11, and we're going to have a decision-making criteria for the two teams. And so the first criteria is the emphasis that we have that I just previously mentioned. The second one is going to be availability and attendance. So if vacation or returning from vacation, that impacts things, because while you're away, of course, we still work on things, and if we want to execute those things in games, well, of course, that proves challenging to bring them up to speed. Injury, the same sort of thing applies. Now, there's also the impact of who we're scheduled to play that week, and then our specific area of focus, either short or long term for each specific player. And that is going to be, I'll comment on that a little bit later. So let's take league game scenario one. So you see on the right-hand side our decision-making criteria. I've sort of listed in blue or highlighted the one item, which is who each team is scheduled to play that week. So we've got our squad of 24 boys, and let's say in this scenario we've got one team that is playing a stronger center. Well, based on that, we would sort of review our evaluation of practices over the past while, and look to see how each player's focus has been, what they've executed, how they've executed during practice training sessions, and make our decisions based on that type of those criteria. So we'd have team one, which would be set based on these items here. And then in turn, the second team, which might be playing a different team, maybe not as strong a center, that team would play there. There's another scenario as well too, in that, of course, we could both be playing strong centers. So in that case, we could have team one and team two, where they're broken out based on what we're looking for them to accomplish. So the specific areas of focus become more of an emphasis here. Again, recognizing who we're scheduled to play that week. So if we're looking to maybe push our players or develop our players on the short term and say, okay, we've identified some weaknesses in their games. Maybe it's their weaker foot. We're trying to get them to really sort of come out and use their weaker foot more during games. It's highly unlikely when you're playing stronger centers, where there's more pressure, that player is going to even try and execute using their weaker foot. We've seen it time and time again. So maybe the third scenario is when we are playing or one of the teams is playing a so-called weaker center. And in doing so, we can allocate a certain player to play on that team and give them specific roles for them to accomplish. And we would be able to talk to them beforehand and say, this is what we're looking for you to accomplish. And after the game, we could evaluate and give them their feedback, whether they were able to to achieve that particular goal and execute what we're looking for. In the long run, doing that definitely provides more development for the player individually, and in turn improves both the entire group, the entire squad of boys. And that's ultimately what we're looking to accomplish.
That's great, Andrew. So, from my perspective, I'm looking at it more from the logistical side. So thinking of the scheduling and the potential impact to continuity that we've had in the last two seasons, I think that's something that's on our mind. So we'd want to get these schedules, squared away at least 2 weeks in advance, so that everyone knows kind of which fields they're on and who they're up against and which team they'd be a part of. So obviously, looking at this year's framework in terms of the schedule, there was a lot of continuity in terms of Team White and Team Green playing in the same locations at the same times. If they weren't, they were typically on the same dates or the same time. So I don't think it's a big change. The format should be fairly easy for us to schedule around. So more to come, I guess, as the season approaches and as we get an idea of what the schedule will look like.
For sure. And, I think the same thing applies here. And it's a lot easier, obviously, with festivals and tournaments in that we have, there's a longer time horizon when it comes to that. But the same thing will apply there, Sash, right? In that we'll make sure that we evaluate how practices are going. Monitor their players' development, see how their focus is, because really that focus is a key attribute to pushing the players along. And if we can get everyone's focus together, and if the boys start to recognize in practice what group they're in, and if that pushes them along, great, no problem at all. That's what we're looking for them to do, is recognize that their actions obviously have an impact on what happens. And it's not just to do with us, but it has everything to do about them being prepared to train, and so that we can get the most out of them at training, and in return provide opportunities for them to play on specific teams against specific competition, be it during league games or in festivals and tournaments. All right. So the last thing here really is just the point about that we brought up about U12 and U13, and in particular, it's the Kitchener Soccer Club's academy. So they recently had an information session of which I attended. Sasha attended that as well. Some others attended that from the group. And we recognize not everyone was available to do that. Just be aware that someone from the club, we're going to arrange to have someone from the club come and share some more information about the academy. We are so far away from it now that we have a great opportunity to educate people about the value of the academy, which hands down is the way to go if you are super serious about your son developing over the long term. Mario's track record is excellent when it comes to developing players, and I can tell you that when professional players return from their breaks during the season, they come back and want to train with him. So I have no issues with the, with an academy setup, and think it's an excellent opportunity for our boys, for those people who are serious. I will point out that the minutia, like if the details, talking about if there's a 6:30 a.m. practice or this or that, or thinking if you're thinking now about those times not working for you, yeah, that's not something to worry about right now. It's the grand principle about whether or not the academy, if that's of interest to your son. If you think that that's something that's going to allow them to excel, then I would highly recommend it, because we can work out those details about training times, etc. All of that can be worked out.
Yeah, and thank you, Andrew, for inviting us all. I think that was a great meeting for those of us that could see past some of the the little details that some people got stuck on. But it was certainly a great opportunity. I think what I saw out of it, obviously Mario's number one focus is on the athlete's development. So it really is the 3 times a week in terms of training. But it is all about the children. It has nothing to do with anything else, and that kind of resonated. And then there was also the aspect of it that, they are looking at kind of a pre-academy U8 to U11, I guess, or U8 to U12 division where they'll be able to grow into the academy. I think we're benefiting from having you as a part of this age group to be able to get us there, and make that handover to Mario being a bit more seamless with regard to all the experience you've had with him directly. So I think we're in an even better position, considering the training that you've been providing us over the last 2 years. So that's been great too.
So in the end, more information to come on the Elite Academy at Kitchener. So it's going to be one of these things where we'll bring someone to us to speak to us, and that's going to be a good thing. And all questions that you might have can be answered at that point in time. But at this point, that pretty much wraps it up. Sash, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, if anyone has any questions, or feel free to email me directly. I can compile the list of questions and get those answers out to everybody.
Again, the premise here is just to provide you with a lot more information in advance of the tryouts than we have in the past. Typically, the process is that you come to tryouts not even really knowing what the coaching staff has in store for you, and we felt that it was far more useful for you to know in advance what path we plan on going, and how it makes sense for the development of your son. And ultimately, we're going to continue to do that, knowing that at the ages of U9 to U12, that's what you've got to do, is just focus on player development and give them the skills that they need, so that they can continue to pursue it as much as they want, as their focus hopefully comes along the way. All right, speak to you later.